After being sent to a school for element benders, a newcomer and her team will have to learn the most powerful spells in the world, so that she can defend her entire species from the onslaught of the fairy eaters. Today we're going to recap the story of the series, Fate, the Winx Saga, from 2021. During the night, on a farm, a man goes to his barn to check that all the sheep are together, and noticing that some of them are missing, he sets off in search of his animals. He crosses a magical barrier, heading deep into the forest, but when he notices something dripping on his shoulder, he finds his sheep completely destroyed, and looks around to find out who caused it. Soon after, he comes across a macabre creature that chases him through the forest. The man ends up tripping over a branch, and no matter how hard he tries to reach the barrier, he is pulled in by the creature, which manages to finish him off. In another world, Bloom is the youngest student at Alfea College, an institution that welcomes and trains all fairies. Noticing that the girl seems lost and doesn't know where her dormitory is, Sky approaches the newcomer and explains that he is going to the specialists building and that the fairies building is on the other side of the campus. Soon after, Bloom meets Stella, who takes her into the fairies' dormitory and introduces her to her new room. After getting to know the school, Bloom goes to Principal Farah's office, who assures her that the girl will master her powers and become an extremely powerful fairy, just like all the other students at the school. In her dormitory, the new girl realizes that she will be sharing a room with 4 students. Trying to understand how her powers work, Bloom goes to talk to Stella, and the tutor reveals that fairy magic can be triggered by emotions such as love, hate, anger, and happiness. In the courtyard of Alfea, while the specialist classes train their combat techniques, Sky practices with his friend Riven. After his training, Sky goes to Saul, his tutor, who gives him a brief demonstration of his techniques in battle, after which the man describes the main enemies of the magical world, the Burnt Ones. Strong, fast creatures that spread a powerful infection to their victims. A few hours later, outside the barrier, the remains of the farmer's body are found, and Saul is joined by Principal Farah and Benjamin, the father of one of Bloom's roommates and a researcher from Alfea, who takes a sample from the body so they can find out what kind of burn attacked him. In order to learn to control her powers, Bloom goes outside the school and crosses the barrier into the forest. Looking at her cell phone, the girl sees several photos of the fire she caused in the past, when she still couldn't control her emotions, and feeling angry about the mistakes she made, she manages to conjure up a flame in her hands. The problem is that Bloom hasn't yet learned how to undo her spells, and when she realizes that the fire in her hands won't go out, she begins to despair. Nearby, after another day of swimming, Aisha is getting out of the river when she comes across her friend on fire and tries to calm her down. Unable to control herself, Bloom orders her roommate to leave, and the fire breaks out towards the girl. To defend herself, Aisha conjures a water barrier and manages to stop the girl's attack. The pair return to the dormitory, and Aisha is confused, as she doesn't understand how a girl born to human parents could have channeled so much energy, and theorizes that the newcomer may have been adopted. However, Bloom says that she is certain that these are her real parents, and that she has heard the story of her birth countless times. At that moment, Aisha says that her friend might be a fairy girl who swapped places with a human baby on the day she was born. At dusk, the girls find Stella completely alone in her room and ask about Bloom's whereabouts. Musa, a mind fairy, reads Stella's thoughts and realizes that the girl is feeling guilty about something. Pressured by her companions, the girl reveals that Bloom was homesick, so she decided to lend her magic ring so that she could visit her family. Outside the magical world, the newcomer gives up on seeing her family and returns to the site of the portal. At that moment, Bloom begins to hear something whispering her name, and when she looks out of the window, she sees a macabre creature standing outside. Out of fright, she drops the ring on the ground, and the object falls into the underground pipe, and with nowhere to run, the girl tries to remain silent. However, the monster begins to destroy the window, and the girl sneaks through the vents to try to escape, but the creature quickly catches up with her, and makes an attack that causes her to collect the ring with her body. Panicked, the fairy goes around the place and out of the tunnels, and as she was heading for the exit, she meets Headmistress Farah, who orders the girl to leave. Back in the magical kingdom, the fairies find the newcomer leaving the cemetery, and Bloom is worried when she realizes that the creature has taken Stella's ring. A few hours later, Saul goes to Farah's office, and the woman reveals that instead of eliminating the burned one, she has only sedated him, so that they can study the monster, and find out why these beings are appearing again. Inside the barn, a mysterious figure approaches the monster and shocks the creature, which awakens even more burned ones. The next day, the principal goes to the burned one imprisoned with Saul, and uses her magic to enter the monster's mind and read his thoughts. Reading her target's subconscious, Farah discovers that he is the same burnt one who attacked the farmer, but when she tries to go deeper, the creature awakens, and after almost being attacked, the principal is saved by Saul. After this, the students head to the stone circle, where the principal explains how each of the elemental spells works, and reveals that over time, they will master more than one type of magic. Farah begins the training, where the fairies demonstrate their spells, channeling the energy of their powers and controlling the respective elements of nature. All the girls manage to conjure their abilities without any difficulty, but when it's her turn, Bloom can't create her fire magic, and her classmates start to make fun of her. After class, the principal tries to console the new girl, and Bloom asks if she really is a switched child, leaving Farah startled by the sudden question. Even though she is reluctant, the woman says that she didn't want her student to discover this secret so soon. She knows that she will find the answers once she becomes stronger. Later, in the cafeteria, the fairies get together to put together a plan to recover Stella's ring, and Tara tells them that the burned one is probably chained and stunned by Zambak, a substance created by her father. Meanwhile, on the other side of Alfea, Riven is leaving the training camp when he is intercepted by Beatrix, who says that he is the perfect delinquent to help her with her plan. Quickly, the pair successfully break into the room, and Beatrix uses her lightning magic among the shelves to find the school's historical records. At the same time, Bloom returns to the stone circle alone and is met by Stella, who mocks the girl. However, the insults help the fairy to concentrate, and when she puts her hands back in the bowl, she manages to create her flames. In his living room, Farah talks to Saul about the burned one and decides to contact the queen to ask her to send a tactical team to find the creature and take it to Solaris, the main kingdom. That way they can study what's going on. When the convoy of soldiers is heading towards Alfea with Saul, they spot a figure walking in the middle of the forest, and as they stop the cars, they hear the screams of a burned one in the distance. When they discover that the captured monster will be transported to Solaris, the queen's kingdom, the girls warn each other, and the group of fairies crosses the barrier and heads for the barn. However, when they finally arrive at the site, they realize that the creature has already been taken away. At that moment, Musa starts to feel a lot of pain and notices something strange coming from the middle of the forest. Tara shouts, calling the rest of the group, who arrive at the scene to find the bodies of all the Solaris soldiers eliminated by the burned one. At the same time, Bloom was alone in the barn, and when she heard something whispering her name, she decided to follow the call. While investigating the bodies, they notice that Coach Saul is still alive, and Tara and Musa decide to go to the man, but when they notice that the new girl has disappeared, Stella and Aisha go to look for Bloom. Saul orders the girls to stay away, as he is infected, but Tara doesn't listen to the professor and binds his arms with tree roots, while Musa pours the bottle of Zambak into his mouth, slowing down the infection. Still alone in the gloomy forest, Bloom walks in the direction of the whispers, but when she looks back, she realizes that the burnt one is watching her from afar, and upon being discovered, the monster runs towards the girl. Desperate, she throws a fireball at the creature, which continues to attack her. Just as he was about to launch his attack, the burned one is hit by a jet of water from Aisha, which causes him to be driven into a stake. The pair approach the body, and Bloom notices that Stella's ring is stuck in the monster's chest, and manages to retrieve the object. In Alfea, while Tara and Musa take Saul to the greenhouse, the girl orders the students to notify the principal, Farah, and warn Benjamin about what has happened. Farah arrives at the greenhouse, and the researcher prepares some antidotes for Saul, who reveals to his companion about the figure in the forest, and that when they went to the barn to transport the burned one, he was already loose. Soon after, Beatrix goes to the principal's office and uses her lightning spells to continue investigating the books, when she accidentally manages to open a secret passage behind one of the bookshelves. Suddenly, she is surprised by the assistant, who is actually the girl's ally, and warns her that the principal has placed a magical trap in the passageway. Inside the dormitory, Bloom returns Stella's ring, and they agree never to talk about what happened again. Soon afterwards, the girls are getting ready for bed, but as she looks at her friend, Aisha notices that her eyes have turned white. Bloom begins to have memories of the day she was born, and discovers that a mysterious woman asked her to meet her when she knew her time had come. The next day, the girls practice their spells again, and after all the fairies control their spells correctly, Bloom manages to light a fire successfully. At night, the students have a party in the castle, while the professors study the situation of the burned ones in the observatory. Noticing that they had accidentally split up, Bloom sets out to find Aisha, and goes into one of the school's storage rooms, where he finds an old box with photos of old school classes, and decides to take some photos of the woman he saw in his hallucination. On his cell phone, Sky receives the news that the burned one has been eliminated, but it wasn't the same creature that attacked the trainer. Outraged, Sky says he's going to take action and goes alone after the burned one who attacked his master, so that he can finish him off. The fire fairy goes to Farah, and after showing her the woman's photo, orders her to explain why she has been lying all this time. The woman explains that this was Rosalind and that she passed away several years ago, at a time when Alfea was in ruins, and says that she doesn't want to hear any more questions on the subject. Far away, Beatrix rushes to Farah's office and warns the traitorous assistant that they must cross the secret passage immediately. Since she doesn't know how to deactivate the trap, she levitates her partner's body in the air and throws him against the spell, which paralyzes him and allows her to descend the stairs. Down there, the young woman finds a source of magical energy, but when she tries to apply her lightnings to it, she is stopped by another spell. Angry at the situation, she decides to eliminate the young man, using her magic to disintegrate him. Extremely angry at not getting any answers, Bloom goes to the stone circle, and after quickly lighting all the torches in the place, she begins to use her hatred as a source of energy to conjure up her powers. However, as much as she created a huge amount of flames everywhere, the girl received no response from her subconscious and began to cry, completely heartbroken. At that moment, Sky finds the young woman alone, and while they are talking, Bloom hears the whispers again, and says that the burned one may be in the forest. As soon as he hears this, the young man takes off in a rage, running towards the place, and without knowing what to do, Bloom goes after his friend and sends a warning message to all the other fairies in the group. After the newcomer senses that the burned one is near, they gather together to protect themselves, at which point the creature jumps out of a tree and makes an attack on Sky, who tries to strike him with his sword, but is knocked down by the monster, which then attacks Bloom. Just as he was about to attack the girl, Stella appears and blinds the creature with her light spell, while Terra holds his legs with her roots, causing him to get stuck in the ground. Soon afterwards, Aisha and Bloom cast their water and fire spells, creating a large cloud of smoke around the burned one and allowing Sky to unleash a powerful blow with his sword. At the end of the fight, the group begins to approach the body, but Musa senses something strange and discovers that the creature is still alive. However, as soon as the creature gets up, it is filled with a strong solar glow, which illuminates the entire forest and puts an end to the macabre burning. The spell has been cast by Principal Farah, who takes all the students back to school. Sky goes to his trainer and is extremely relieved to see that the man is fine, as the burned one that infected him has finally been eliminated. Sometime later, the professors meet in Farah's office, and after telling her everything she talked about with Bloom, the woman explains that the young girl has enormous potential as a fairy, and that they can't tell her that her mother is still alive. At that moment, it is revealed that what is inside the magic fountain below the office is actually Rosalind, who was put to sleep by a spell several years ago. They use a substance that exposes magic conjured in a place, and when they notice that the assistant has been eliminated by fairy magic, they realize that there is a criminal in Alfea. The next morning, a convoy of soldiers arrives at the school, bringing the Queen of Solaris for an assembly on the burned ones. After welcoming Queen Luna to the office, Aisha, who is Farah's new assistant, goes back to organizing the files when she finds a small ring containing a spell that reveals the assistant's elimination in whispers. She quickly runs to Bloom to tell him what she's discovered, and the fire fairy asks her friend to go to the assembly, while she infiltrates the school pantry to investigate. Suddenly, she is found by Sky, and together they search for information about Rosalind, when they are caught by Beatrix and Riven, who say they want to help them with the investigation. At the assembly, while Queen Luna is giving her speech about the burned one in the kingdom, Principal Farah is sneaking around using her spell to try and find the student responsible for the assistant's elimination. Musa reads the professor's minds and discovers that they are all on alert, as if they are about to start a conflict with some threat. And that makes the girls extremely worried. After a few minutes of conversation, Riven and Sky leave, and Beatrix remains in the pantry with Bloom. After destroying a hidden door at the back of the room, they find a war room with a sand map in the center that perfectly shapes the entire kingdom around Alfea. In the dormitory, the girls begin to recap the situation, and Terra says that even her father seems extremely afraid of what is happening. Suddenly, Sky shows up looking for Bloom, and after listening to the girl's explanation about the possible criminal on the loose in the school, the young man realizes that it is Beatrix who has caused all this. Soon after, the pair are investigating lists and files, when Bloom begins to receive several messages from the fairy group, but as she is focused on getting the information, she decides to ignore the notifications. Noticing that the fire fairy is distracted, Beatrix launches a small electrical charge into the cell phone, causing it to crash for good. After much searching, the girl finally finds information saying that Rosalind was in Asterdell, and the girl says she knows how to get there. They steal a car from the school and set off on their own. In the principal's office, The fairies tell her that they already know everything that's going on, and that Beatrix is the one who committed all those atrocities. In the middle of the desert, Beatrix begins to channel a great bolt of lightning with her magic, and breaks through an invisibility barrier that reveals the ghost village of Asterdell. The girl tells her that there had been a great invasion of the burned ones, and so that they could eradicate these creatures from the magical world, the professors of Alfea decided to cast a combo of spells that destroyed the entire village. The lightning fairy reveals that she witnessed all the destruction, as she also lived in Asterdell, and the memory of that day was implanted in her mind by an extremely powerful spell from Rosalind, who spared her. After that, the barrier regenerates and the pair leave, heading towards the school. On the way, the vehicle is attacked by flaming arrows, and when she tries to run, Beatrix has her feet caught in the ground, and Farah captures the young woman with magic handcuffs, while Saul and Ben take Bloom back to school. When they arrive in Alfea, they take the young rebel to be imprisoned, and Bloom leaves in disgust. A few days later, while Alfea's superiors were talking in the principal's office, one of the soldiers arrived on the scene with serious injuries and told them that the Solaris soldiers had abandoned them to face the group of burned ones alone. That night, Bloom goes to the place where Beatrix is imprisoned, and Dane, who is one of the rebels' friends, is guarding the cell on orders from the principal. When the fire fairy arrives at the gate, she notices that he has sedated her colleague, and enters the prison to talk to the traitor. Bloom is reluctant to release Beatrix, but the rebel tells her that if she changes her mind, she should get the magic book that is with Dane, where there is a hidden artifact. Only then will she be able to remove the magical handcuffs from the girl's wrists. In the cafeteria, Tara and Aisha go up to Dane and pin the young man to the table, ordering him to tell them everything he knows, otherwise they will warn Farah about last night's betrayal. Impatient to get more information, the fire fairy goes to the stone circle, but just as she was about to complete the ritual, Sky appears and asks why she has come to this place alone. Suddenly, he picks up the object, finding the amulet between the pages, and to distract him, Bloom kisses the young man, who then begins to feel dazed and faints. After using Dane's sedative, the girl sets off in the direction of the prison, but as she approaches the place, she is interrupted by Aisha and Tara, who try to stop her. In anger, Bloom's eyes begin to glow, but as soon as she realizes that she is about to attack her own friends, she gives up her plan, and after delivering the amulet into Aisha's hands, the girl leaves. In the greenhouse, Ben and Saul are tending to the wounded soldier when one of the team's agents contacts the young man. Upon answering, the trio discovers that all the combatants have been eliminated by the burned ones, and when the last survivor tries to flee, she is quickly destroyed by the enemies, and the men see the army of burned ones getting closer and closer to Alfea. Bloom arrives at Farah's office, and after revealing everything she knows about Rosalind and Asterdell, she demands answers from the woman. The principal tells her that Rosalind was the most feared fairy ever, and no one ever dared to disobey her. But one day, she forced her team to perform a spell together, which conjured up a storm that destroyed the village. The woman assured him that the place had already been evacuated, but Farah discovered that they had annihilated all the innocent inhabitants of Asterdell. After the conversation, all the fairies except Aisha join Bloom and decide to support her in her plan, returning the amulet to the girl, who frees Beatrix from prison. At dusk, all the experts are positioned at the edge of the barrier, when Aisha appears and warns everyone about the attitudes of her friends. With the rebel free, the group returns to the office, but as they open the secret passage, Stella, who was invisible behind the traitor, pushes her in the spell, leaving her paralyzed. After teaching the woman a lesson, the group finds Rosalind's magical prison, and Bloom sees the woman inside the hibernation spell. They manage to talk telepathically, and the young woman uses her flames to destroy the barrier and free the fairy. Outside, the trio has the idea of checking if Beatrix is still paralyzed, but when they return to the stairs, the girl has disappeared, and Farah arrives at the scene alongside Aisha and Ben. She kicks the girls out of the office and heads towards Bloom, but it's too late as the pair have already disappeared. At the edge of the barrier, the soldiers begin to hear shouts of burned ones coming from the direction of the school, and decide to retreat to protect the students. Bloom and Rosalind join forces in the stone circle, and the young woman begins to channel her firepower. As soon as she realizes that the apprentice has full control of her magic, Rosalind orders her to go back to school and protect her friends. Inside the dormitory, the group of fairies notice that the power is failing, and when Tara's brother goes to see what's going on, he's surprised by one of the burned ones, who attacks him with its claws. Wounded, the young man runs back to his room to warn the girls about the burning, and after a few minutes, Sky arrives at Bloom's side, saying that they should go to the courtyard because a war for Alfea is about to start. Before leaving, Farah reveals to Bloom that all the old woman wants is to weaken the barrier, and allow the burned ones to invade the school. Suddenly, one of the burned ones manages to break through the roof, but it ignores all the students and flees the building, making the principal realize that all those creatures are going after a single target. However, Bloom already knew that this would happen, and after joining Stella and Aisha in the middle of the forest, the three of them set out to finish off all the burned ones by themselves. While Stella remains invisible next to Aisha, the water fairy creates a dome around Bloom, which channels her flames and conjures a pair of fiery wings. Now in full control of her power, Bloom shoots several fireballs and flaming jets at the monsters, which are eliminated one by one. The fire fairy wipes out all the threats in the place, at which point Farah finds the young girl, who has almost fainted from exhaustion after the fight, and is taken back to school by her friends, who are keeping her company after fighting to save Alfea. The next day, at the cemetery, the principal talks to Rosalind, who reveals that Bloom is the bearer of the dragon flame, the magic that gave rise to the burned. Along with this, the woman also tells her that the queen is on his side, and that from now on, she will be the new principal, and will lead the school in the way it was always meant to be. Furious at all this betrayal, Farah says that she is the real principal of Alfea, and will never allow the school to return to the domains of the old woman. However, as she was leaving, the woman is lifted into the air by Rosalind, who delivers a fatal blow to her neck, eliminating the principal instantly. Suddenly, Beatrix, Riven and Dane return to Alfea with the Solaris soldiers, and Queen Luna tells them that she has come to arrest Saul for trying to eliminate Andreas, Sky's father. The man gets out of one of the vehicles and introduces himself to his son, who is stunned to see the man. In the past, Andreas was the only soldier who blindly obeyed Rosalind's orders, and when she tried to stop him from eliminating the residents of Asterdell, Saul was forced to fight his partner and finish him off in combat. At the school gates, the fairies are returning from one of their outings when they notice Andreas, Luna and Rosalind waiting for the girls and tell them that from now on, some rules will change. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.